Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Rachel and Dana. We are coming at you today with our next book that we are going through. We'll be going through for the next 3 weeks, and I am so excited to talk to you about this book, Dana. It is The Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And what a ride. If you haven't read this book before, what a ride you're in for. Buckle up, grab a cup of tea. It's like 600 pages and it's good. If you've read it before, get ready to see it in possibly a way you've never seen it before and find all of the nuance that's actually going on in this book. I just can't wait to get into it. But the agenda dictates, and I follow the rules and the agenda to a daggone T because I can't help myself. Let's start with a little small talk. Dana, what is going on over at Danger Tales?
First of all, y'all, she was just cracking me up because I'm the one, I just be doing things. You know what I'm saying? I just be doing things. At the top, we just record these. At the time of this recording, we are on the heels of having, we had a great book club discussion on Saturday of Sin and Chocolate. And I hope that we have it at some time on this podcast because I am starting to really love that book. And now I'm slowly, I didn't get 6 of them. Slowly buying them. I know. I've decided, y'all listen, I could just go and buy them all, but what fun would that be? So every time I do something, I add another pair to my
It's like a little reward. You're like, oh, I got the next one.
And every time I do it, I get the ebook and I get the audiobook, and then I'm slowly getting the paperbacks because I just love it. And I know I'm a mess. But one of the things that made it so much fun is afterwards, after we finished the discussion, because I wasn't sure how to do all the stuff with going over chapters in the book on a recorded line. So after we closed it out, we spent 20 minutes just going over the first 5 pages.
That's good.
Oh man. Me reading it, pointing out all the things that she was doing just in those first 5 pages. And so it just makes me excited. It makes me excited about what we get to do, but also of finding books just as a reader that I love. And then finding how the reason why you love it is because it's so structurally sound and because the characters are fire and that they're all like, oh, I didn't even see that. I didn't see this. I didn't see that. And so it just makes it all exciting. And so it makes me like, ooh, what other gems of books can I find for book club? And so, so book club just finished. And then I'm just honestly getting into the throes of my next book because I've been on vacation, good chillaxing. Listen, Dana, you're chilling too hard. You got to get better. You got to. Look, got a deadline here.
And can we ask what the next book is? Can you spoil that or no?
Okay, I'm going to tell a little bit. So, I kind of say this without having a full spoiler. Okay, so I had a series of books that I was working on that end up being spread out across collaborations. And then I sort of decided, created this framework. And now I've got to rework my books because I need to find 2 more books to put in this series. It sounds like a bunch of mess. I'm going to figure it out.
But that's such a Dana problem. That's the most Dana thing. You're like, I had this whole thing and I got to find 2 more books. I got to find a spot to just stick in 2 more books.
Come on in, make some room. And so it's like, it's a woman who is down and out and she is struggling because her really close friend, her best friend is missing, and she is calling her best friend's ex and threatening him, not realizing he's a bad guy. And it puts her on the radar of our main male character because now he is following her to try to get to the bad guy. And so the book starts off, she thinks the dude's following her and she thinks he's stalking her. And she pulls a gun out on him. So it's like, bam. Yeah, we come in.
Oh, we start on that note. Come on.
So I'm having a great time, but I do know at the tail end, I got to find 2 more books. But there's, we're not trying to solve, world hunger or the state of the country. We're just writing romance. And so, yeah, but it's all good. So I'm having fun getting, doing that. So yeah, about to really get back into writing because I've had time off for the past like 6 weeks of just plotting and kind of just chilling. And now I gotta get right to it.
Sorry, I was follow question. Does that time off, when you have time off like that, because you're not, when it comes to the writing, you're not like fully off, right? You just like you said, you're kind of chilling, you're plotting, you're thinking. Does that time off, when you have that length of time off from like sitting down and like writing, is that really useful to like give yourself some time and some space before you have to like go hard? Is it hard for you to warm back up into it? I'm just a little bit curious about your experience when you have that kind of length of time off, at least from, again, having like actually sitting down and like, okay, we're putting the book on paper.
Yeah, the last quarter was so busy that I felt like I just exploded. So the rest felt like it was long overdue. Like, girl, what you waiting on? Like, it felt like all of the things and then some. But I do find that because I already knew what I was going to get to write this year, I was chomping at the bit a little bit, starting to write stuff, starting to play with characters, even some stories that are trying to like wiggle up to the surface sooner than they need to. So what happens usually is like I'm doing other creative endeavors like painting or quilting, and all of it goes back to story, right? Of like taking notes and a lot of audio recordings and dictation. And none of it is structured because I'm off, because I don't have to do anything. But it's almost like my brain wants to do more of it because I don't have to. And so, of course, thinking about your overall release schedule and things like that, but the stories themselves and the characters and who are these people and what I want to see happen in these stories. And so it's a little bit of both and sort of the ramp up again to try to get back to the intensity that I need to be at to be able to juggle things. It does take a little bit, and it does feel harder after a break like this because the first act is my hardest to write. That's the hardest. Like, it's the hardest for me to write. So that makes it that much more of a challenge. But being excited about the stories and having these moments that I can't wait to write makes it feel a little bit easier. So yeah, so it's good. I don't have a lot of time or I have this much time off, but it's all good. It's all good. I mean, I love it. I wouldn't have it I don't know if I say I wouldn't have it any other way, but I would say it is what it is. And I get to have a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to what's coming up in the next few months.
Awesome. I was just curious because I know that, lots of writers have that experience, right? Where you take time off, or it's the holidays. Life gets weird during the holidays because nothing is the way that it normally is. And then all of a sudden, it's like you get to the new year and everything is just like, quote unquote, back to normal, right? Where it's just like all of a sudden it's like, oh, so I guess we're just back in like normal life now. And so it can be kind of jarring because it's, if you've got a rhythm and you're like, chugging along, and then the holidays kind of disrupt things and then you're trying to get back. So I thought that there were probably some writers out there who might, feel a little bit of comfort hearing you talk about your own experience getting back into it, and even like the struggle with the first act, because I think the first act, this is my experience. The first act is hard for most people, particularly when you first get into a story, right? It's one thing when you're revising, but when you're like just starting the story, you've got all the planning, but now it's like you're trying to get the whole thing off the ground. It's really kind of a big ask, and it sucks because it's the first thing you have to write. And so, for people who have to write linear, I am one of those people. I have to do things in order. It is like a compulsion. A lot of my writers tend to like to write in order. And so that means you have to start with that first act, and you're like...
Yeah, and also is because it's a huge ask in general, right? It's the
Mhm.
setup. And I would also say, like, if you're a person that if you're hearing that you're like, oh my God, that's me, and her answer sort of just skated over it, I think you really have to know yourself, right? Because there are some people that they can't break their streak or it's gonna be hard for them to sort of get back into it. And I've always considered myself a binge writer. It's just something I made up, and not to be offensive to anybody with that word, but I'm the person where I can take time off and then I just write to get a project done, and then I sort of like take a breath and get a time to breathe, and then I go into the next project, and that has always worked for me. And for a long time, I tried to be the other way, write a little bit every day. The more space I give a book, the more space it takes. So if I give myself 5 years to write the book, it would take me 6 years, but I need it at 5. You know what I mean? Like,
And it's like he's at like year 4.9 when you're like sitting down and you're like, cool, like I now I'm ready, like I'm writing the book.
50. You've been tinkering the whole time, sitting down every day the whole time. So I would say, like, knowing yourself, and sometimes you just have to try it to see. But I would say just like question whenever you feel like it just feels unnatural, right? Because sometimes you do it, and after so much, after maybe 30 days, people say 21. I don't think that's enough, but maybe after 30 days, you're like, oh yeah, I like this, or you're like, this still sucks. Then maybe you need to try something else. And it may be the time of day or whatever. Like, there's different ways that you can look at it. But I think calculated the other day, I think I published my first book at 16 or 17 years ago. And I've just now. Congratulations. Yeah. But I was like, oh, it's almost old enough to drink. You know what I'm saying? Not yet. Almost. And and so I just realized, like, that's just how I create. And I think it works because even when I'm down, I'm never just like not anything, right? I'm always reading. I'm always thinking about it. Like, it's always in my phone, of taking it with me and taking notes and stuff. And that's what's a part of my creative process. So yeah. So what about you, ma'am? What's going on over there in Story Cipher?
Yes, ma'am. So actually, speaking of writing, I just so at the time of this recording, I'll have recently posted one of my this is one of my paid subscriber posts that lives behind my Substack paywall, and I went into a bit of nitty gritty on dialogue. So my husband and I. A couple weekends prior, finally watched the movie Hell or High Water. It was written by Taylor Sheridan, and it's the story of two bank robbers who are robbing banks toward a certain goal, and the two Texas Rangers who are trying to catch them. And it was a phenomenal movie. I mean, just everything about it was excellent. The way that they use the setting to communicate. So, we're in a visual medium, so they're using the literal shots and the setting to communicate to us information. Like they're giving us exposition without giving us exposition. And the dialogue was so natural and so witty and so engaging, and I was fascinated by it because they told us so much without giving us the this is something that because you work with writers, you've seen drafts, and so you get the like, as or do you remember when, and you're like trying to slide that information in, and you think you're sly and you're not sly and it's not happening. And so I took the opportunity to kind of use this movie as an example and to parse out some of the ways that you can achieve that kind of dialogue, and some of the this is very much like that post is very much like a mechanism of line writing and how to think about it. But I was looking at, how you can use information and how to particularly think about communicating information that two characters already know, but the audience doesn't know, and how you handle that in a way that makes it natural and interesting. And God, I enjoyed writing that article because it just allowed me to appreciate the movie more. So if you haven't seen it, Hell or High Water, written by Taylor Sheridan, it's a great movie. And so that's the most recent thing that I've been up to, watching good movies and getting into the nitty gritty on dialogue.
You, listen, every time I think we're not more different, I feel like I was like, this woman over here dissecting dialogue. Let's no, but no. I need to peep you. We've been watching some series, some of those limited series on Netflix that a lot of them are thrillers. And it's been interesting to pay attention to the structure, how they're starting to do those mini series on Netflix. Yeah, we'll have to talk about those at one time, and how they are the a lot of them are oh goodness, some sort of CIA FBI dynamic,
Are
and
you watching Black Doves right now? Is that one of the ones you're watching?
we're
Okay.
watching what is the name? The Night Agent. We're watching that one where he works in the basement of the White House, answering the phones whenever agents are in the field and they need help. And exactly, he's put there almost like he's on punishment because he intersected a bomb on a public train, and they think he may have had something to do with it because of his father. So it's like all this stuff. And I think there's on one side of it, it's like the thriller and how you play with that dynamic. But then also the other part of it is the structure and how Netflix is almost starting to have a repeatable structure of how they're structuring those stories because they're usually 8 to 10 episodes long. And then the last part has been, in a couple of them, how they're sort of, I want to say cheating because I don't have another way to say it, how they're sort of cheating because they will start jumping point of views towards the last episodes. So to a secondary characters, to the antagonist, to sort of almost like, it so doesn't give away a lot, but it almost gives you more insight into why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing, but it also increases the stakes for the protagonist. So really, we've been enjoying them. My husband is not, so he wasn't as much, but what I've appreciated about them is like all of their cliffhangers don't seem forced, right? They seem really natural and a natural progression while at the same time upping the stakes. And maybe it is because they have such a small window that there is no intent to stretch it out for seasons on seasons. And so we need to talk about that at one time because I've been enjoying that. But with that said, we are here to talk about my BFF in my head.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Speaking of stretching things out, the things we never got over, 600 pages or 550 or something pages of small town, grumpy Viking, sunshine, Daisy. I really like, you've been using this term throughout what you guys are going to hear the future episodes. This term of luxuriating, right? Where you have this very long experience and you would think that when you see a romance novel that's packing 600 pages, you're like, oh my God. But she makes you want to hang for all 600 pages. She makes you want to stay there. So I'm really excited to get into this book. And I love that this is the pick that immediately follows Ninth House, because we went hard with Ninth House. We dealt with heavy themes. There were ghosts, there was magic, there was murder. And now we're moving into the things we never got over, which is totally much lighter. And we have all kinds of conflict, but we are in like lower stakes, like literal physical lower stakes conflict. And it's really, what I love about this as our next pick is that, we get we can talk about deep things in ninth house. And we do talk about deep things in ninth house. And the things we never got over, we also talk about deep things and the things we never got over, even though we are not, going to life and death and damnation. And we're not, the conflict again, I'm thinking low conflict in terms of like we're like the stakes on the conflict are not as intense. Yeah, as ninth house. But I came to the romance genre, or I'm coming to this book as someone who historically does not come from romance. So it is my friendship with you that has introduced me to the romance novel. And I came to it as someone, as someone who had no concept for it. I was like, those are those sexy books. Okay. And I was like, that was enough for me to be like, cool, that's going to be cast for me. And throughout the years of our friendship, like, as I've listened to you teach about romance and talk about romance, and I've read your romance novels and I've read other romance novels because I know you and because we talk about books, it has really shown me, the value of romance as, first of all, ain't nothing wrong with an entertainment read, and I will stand by that till the day I die. I say that as someone who loves classics. I say that as someone who loves, serious novels and, things that make me think. But man, you can do all that with an entertainment read too. And that's something that Lucy Score does in this book. And it gives you the opportunity, because I think that romance, one of the things you've talked to me about romance is that romance is a form of fantasy. And romance gives us the opportunity to live in the kind of world that we actually want to live in, where, we have, a lover who's crazy about us and would do anything for us. And where, even when we make mistakes, it turns out good in the end. And girlfriends who will always back you up and, who will cut a hole or who will do anything for you, And these are things that we crave and that we value. So it's not just about having real steamy chandelier swinging goodness, right? But that's like also part of the human experience, and it becomes a part of how you communicate intimacy and vulnerability. And all of these are, right, those are serious topics and those are deep things to explore. And romance gives you the opportunity to do that in ways that are often lighter and safe and fun, but also still deeply meaningful. So I like to say that because we're gonna, over the course of this podcast, we're gonna be having some ninth house type picks. We're gonna have some things we never got over type picks. We're gonna find the stuff in between, but all of it is valuable, and it's easy for non-romance readers to feel like a romance novel so predictable and to kind of dismiss it. And I think that that's a mistake. And so that's why I wanted to, as sort of I'm coming from crime and thrillers and, high fantasy and action adventure and all of that stuff, to say, for myself, from my own perspective of why romance novels are valuable and why I think it's important to embrace both picks, right? To embrace our ninth house side and to embrace our Lucy Score things we never got over side as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think the part too that sort of overlaps what you're saying is that this genre can be overlooked by writers, but it's never overlooked by readers. Hard pause. Go ahead. Write that down. Yeah, she will be coming through swinging because, y'all, I ain't gonna lie. You don't gotta give me no classics. If you get me to do a literary, I'm gonna be on the strobe bus because I will be falling asleep. I don't get a lot of sleep, and that seems like nappy time. However, I do love categorical romance. I do love fiction, and I'm a person that has read it and know that what it's like to be on the reader side of it, and I know what it's like to be on the writer side of it, and I know what it's like to be on the editor side of it. And if people had a problem with it, that's their problem, not mine. But what I do know that above all, people can say what they want to say about the books, but it is a common human experience. And it is fiction that is depicting life. And you really can get a gauge of culture and times and how we are feeling as people, being connected or disconnected, a lot by what is going on in indie romance, right? Like you really can. And so I think that even when you have something like things we never got over, that on the surface it can say, okay, yes, it's lower stakes, but this book is equally um, um, comprehensive as in how she masters storytelling and how she delivers it while laughing and calling the woman not Tina. Okay, like she is, listen, her pen game is fire. And so, I think we can look at serious reads, but we can also look at balancing these like categorical romance and fiction reads to be able to balance out our experience. And I think also that it's a great way to be able to deliver when you have heavy hitter subject matters to sort of deflate it a little bit or to relieve some of that tension so that you then can being able to have this sort of tool in your toolbox makes you really well rounded. And I think when people get over the chandelier swinging, even though sometimes that is what we want, when you get over the chandelier swinging, a lot of it comes down to the dynamics of people and what we really want and what we need and how we struggle with saying what we need. So we scream about what we want. And we as writers become like this mirror and we get to talk about the human experience. And, it's just that in this, it's, a little bit of a little bit of similar swinging. So I love it, y'all. I love it. I love it. I love it. One of the reasons why I wanted to pick this book as the first book, and we have another like my all-time favorite romance book of all time coming up this quarter. But one of the or next quarter, the reason why I picked this book first is because I believe that it is one of those books that you can get, you can cause you to have pause because of the length, but I have not found anyone, and I'm sure somebody will prove me wrong, anyone that did not like this book. And I believe you can learn so much as a writer from this book, even if you're not a romance writer. If you are a person, which we'll talk about in this as we move forward, but if you're a person that you do any sort of writing that has subplots that are romance, or you want to, because let's quiet as it's kept, and it's not even quietly kept, romance is one of the best selling niches. And this is why you will find a lot of romantic subplots, because that is one of the biggest selling, not the ones that get acquired and they are getting money for advances, but I'm talking about selling to readers, a niche that is out there. And so having the ability to flex that skill set and add that into your books is just going to make your read that much more enjoyable, or that much easier to market, or even just carving out your own space as you work with balancing out those two worlds. And so yeah, I love it. I love it. And I'm so glad we're reading this first.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like, again, romance is a huge, huge genre. A huge selling genre, but also, I think about any of the non like romance like genre books that I love, and pretty much all of them have a romantic subplot, and nobody does romance better than romance writers. So learning, and there are loads of novels that I love that have great romantic subplots that you can learn romantic subplots from. But I think it's really useful to actually see like a romantic to see romance through the lens of the people who write it day in and day out, to help you develop your own even if it's in that romantic subplot space. So before we get into more about who should who should consider picking this book up? What are we going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks? Why don't you hit us with a summary just to orient everybody in the story?
Definitely. In Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, Naomi Wood, a runaway bride, arrives in the quirky small town of Knockemout, Virginia, to help her estranged twin sister, only to find herself saddled with her niece and penniless after her sister skips town. Enter Knox Morgan, the town's grumpy but secretively protective barber who reluctantly steps in to help Naomi rebuild her life. As Naomi navigates her newfound responsibilities and Knox wrestles with his emotional walls, their slow burn romance unfolds against a backdrop of small town charm, humor, and unexpected danger. This story masterfully blends beloved romance tropes like grumpy sunshine and found family while delivering strong character arcs and an emotionally satisfying journey. I do want to say that with that, one of the things that you said about character writers who are looking to write subplots, one of the things that I think that there is a value, especially if you want to get better, even at writing them as subplots, is understanding whether you're writing a whole novel or a subplot, the flow is the same in all. The journey is the same in romance, right? The arc is the same in romance. And so understanding what those moments are, what is that progression? What does that intimacy look like? How does that relationship evolve is important. And seeing it where that is the spotlight is on that can help you see it in a bigger, grander way. It's like the difference between looking at something in a bottle and looking at it in the world, right? You get to interact with it in a bolder way. So yeah, that's the beginning of, or my short little overview for Things We Never Got Over. So there's a couple things that we're going to talk about over this next 4 episodes, and I guess I could just talk about them generally. We could talk about them generally. So some of the reasons why we really think you want to tune in and listen to this is not just because I love it, even though that should be a really good reason. But it's about a couple of things. One is tropes. And we don't talk about tropes as an isolated episode, but you will hear us talk about it over each one of our episodes as we talk about plot, as we talk about characters, as we talk about the takeaways that we think writers can really benefit from in this book. And for me, it's kind of almost a starting place because it feels like there's a big, huge, trope sandwich. It's all of them. You just think, did she leave any on the table? No, she did not. So it's all of them, and it's a great way to see some of the most beloved romance tropes right now done in a way that just feels good. And it feels like you have the sense of nostalgia without it feeling like, oh, I've seen this before. And so it's really, really a great book for that particular area.
Yeah, and we get the chance to really see using tropes to because I was just thinking about it as you were talking of okay, so you say, you're going to pick out tropes, you're going to use tropes, and then you're like, okay, how do I do this in a way so that it doesn't feel stale, we'll say, or, someone's like, I've seen it. And, I'm thinking about okay, so for example, Grumpy Sunshine. And then, you're taking your individual plot and saying, okay, yeah, but what does Grumpy Sunshine look like in this instance, right? And this is what we talk about it in one of the episodes. I don't remember which one, but we talk about how the joy of creating romance is that, yeah, we know how it's ultimately going to end, but there are a lot of different people in the world. There are a lot of different types of stories and types of plots, and there's so much variety that you can choose from, and that you can hodgepodge them together to make something that feels fresh. And And so taking the opportunity to use your plot to think about what does it look like in this context. And that's kind of the fun of tropes. And I think that's the fun of romance. It's like, I love enemies to lovers. And so I know that they're going to start enemies and they're going to end lovers. But how do they get there? And how is the plot going to, and this is something else that we'll talk about, is how is the plot going to throw the characters together so that they keep running into each other and we get the opportunity to keep them butting heads and coming into conflict and building that tension until it finally sort of breaks, when they finally get together. And so this is a really great novel for that, because you're looking for how is your plot affecting the way the tropes play out, how to use tropes in an innovative way, in a way, again, that feels fresh, and also how to use your plot to, again, it's just like you put your protagonists through their paces to get them to transformation, even when it's not murder and ghosts, right? Like, you can still challenge your protagonist in an environment where it's not murder and ghosts.
And we see this played out, and we don't have just like a specific episode where it's just about that, but it's like sprinkled everywhere. It's integrated in all aspects of it, so it's easy to sort of like lift that element out right now, but it's so ingrained in it, even to the how they meet. At the moment that they meet and the sparks that happen, that they are probably one of the best. I don't think I said this, like one of the best demonstrations of opposites that you're going to see in a story. And it's done in a very refreshing way where you still are getting the laughs and you're getting the humor while getting that chemistry between them and those dynamics that there are some parts in there that you're just going to be like, did I just read that? And it's like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Oh my gosh. So we another part that we will talk about as well is characters. This book and characters is it's Lucy Score has a way of writing characters where if you don't feel like you know them, you wish you did. You wish you knew them in your life. You wish you could meet. You wish you could go to knock them out. And it's almost crafted so well that you can miss how complex they are, because it just is just smooth delivery. Smooth delivery. And you see that in both the protagonists as well as the secondary characters. You see it in the cast of characters in the town. And so it just becomes this very vibrant group of people that, even though the story is focused on Knox and Naomi, you cannot sever their story from Knock 'Em Out or from the secondary characters. It just all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and it's really something that I was thinking about as well. It's like their story, like the plot of their story gives us the opportunity. And this is, listen, my fantasy writers, take note, okay? The plot of the story, the plot of Naomi and Knox's stories brings them, like, it takes them around the town of Knock 'Em Out. So it gives them occasion to see and experience the town, which means that it gives the reader an occasion to see and experience the town, in a way that's actually relevant to the story. So you get to meet all these quirky characters and get to know them and get to see the different sides of them. And you get to see the locations of Knock 'Em Out, which are fun. It is fun to go to Knox's super cool hipster barber shop with the exposed brick and the whiskey, and to go to the bar where Naomi has to pick up a job because she can't find a job anywhere. And to meet the characters who populate those places, but it's story related that brings us there. And so it's what allows you to make your world feel vibrant and make your reader care about where the story is actually taking place. And so it becomes we're following Naomi on her journey and we're invested in her, but then we get the pleasure of going around Knockabout and meeting these different characters, and that makes us want to go along for the ride. It makes us want to stay for all 600 pages. It makes us want to come back for book 2 because we find out there's going to be 600 more pages of Knockabout, right? It's just, it really gives us the opportunity to become endeared to the environment of the story itself. And that is something that every fantasy writer I know and every fantasy writer I work with wants to do.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that kind of is knocking on that same door is like it feels lived in, but it also makes us, it's the part of where the town itself and it all becomes like its own character. It's again, you can't separate it. But and I think she not only did she do it well, but it makes you want to come back for book 2 and book 3 and experience it again and experience those people again. And yeah, and even I wrote that down too about the location because it is like you say it all together and it's like you already know, like, oh yeah, knock them out. If you even wait, when I was reading it again, I realized, oh yeah, she showed exactly what she was talking about when they had the fist fight in book 1. Right? Like that's the MO of the town. And you just see it. And I think one of the things that it makes you feel like that it's probably easy to say and a little bit harder to do, but if you really take inspiration from life, it makes it a little bit easier, which is really looking at storytelling as a slice of life. Everyone that you see and interact with and engage with have a life. They're not just standing there waiting for you to come by and say something to them, right? They have kids at home and they have spouses and they have laundry and they need to wash dishes and they need to go by the bank. They have a life, and making both this town and these people so multidimensional just makes it for an enjoyable read. And it not only um make it entertaining, but it serves a purpose, right? In the storytelling. So on top of the fact that Naomi and Knox, the best. And Waylay, can't forget Waylay. And we didn't say it anywhere. And dogs. Oh my God, the dogs. Animals.
If you like dogs, you're gonna get dogs in this story. And honestly, I loved it because I love dogs. I love well, I don't want to spoil any of the bits, but it's just like one of those, it's just a quirky thing that makes, again, like using that as just another layer to add just, could Lucy Score have left the dogs out altogether? Yep. Like, do we, well, no, actually we can't. No, we can't. It's particularly, Knox's dog. So actually, yeah, I'm like in the middle of a thought and I have to take it back because even the dogs play a role in the story and in making the story, like like literally even in furthering the plots. And that, I mean, talk about expert use of random stuff that not only makes it feel more vivid. And this is this is the art of this book, and this is the opportunity for storytellers is to take, like, if there's a random thing you want to include or something that you love or something you think that will kind of like add that layer of just color or vibrancy to your story or to your world, make it part of the plot. Like, pull it in so that it has something to say in the plot, something relevant to contribute. And now all of a sudden you've got these layers that make the story more colorful and they're playing a part in the world. Because just like you said, when you have your protagonist, whether it's, kind of dual protagonist like a romance or just your one protagonist doing their thing and going on their journey, the world, what you don't want is for the world to feel like the other parts are standing still until the protagonist gets there, right? You want it to feel like, and I say, if you've been around me for any length of time, you've heard this a gazillion times. But if you haven't, here it is for your first time. You want it to feel like this world was spinning before you showed up, and it's going to keep spinning even when you put the book down before you finish the book. And even after you finish the book, that this world continues to spin on its own axis. And that's what kind of creates this sort of like vortex that's going to suck your reader in, because they've come into a world that is living and moving, and it doesn't feel like a protagonist is moving through a prop set that, as soon as they're gone, disappears and it doesn't exist. And so this is a great example of taking every little detail and using it to contribute to the story, contribute to the plot, and contribute to your main characters.
Mhm. And part of that that we'll also discuss is beyond the characters is like you're expecting the love story, right? You're expecting the main plot, but it also in this story, it's like the subplots, the yummy subplots. This is a story where pick one, anyone, that you want to follow that thread. And if you, and I didn't. I just couldn't imagine if I actually sat down and tried to track, between Naomi and Knox, of course, and Naomi and Waylay, and Naomi and her sister Tina, and Naomi and her parents, right? And all these things are going on. And at no time do you actually feel the sort of strain of these plots being juggled. Right. And again, this shows how Lucy's score, like, she's a beast because it's a lot going on, and to wrap it in a rom-com, a small town rom-com,
What a power move.
oh my goodness. She was like, look, hold my beer. You know what I'm saying? Like, hold my purse. What? Watch me do my thing. And so you have technically, the love story, but you have the family drama, you have suspense, you have the setup for books 2 and book 3. You have the family dynamics on so many levels, parenting, um, um, drug abuse, death, grief, all in this. So it's like no wonder she gave us 600 pages or whatever, 500 and some odd pages of story, but it's one of those things where you can sit down and truly learn from a master when it comes to the subplots. So we'll be talking about that along with the plot. And we we have mentioned it, but I do have it here because I think it comes and goes, but it really sort of is that string of like the witty banter, the humor, the like how she sort of wraps these very strained emotional moments around humor to where you almost forget that Naomi is that this is like messed up. Like her sister, she needs to have several seats. Okay. And it's like she's so busy trying to like get her life in order that you almost forget like how bad it really is. Like how really bad it is. And so to that Lucy score takes something that could have been a really angsty read, and it's like wrapped in humor and wrapped in dogs and kids and old people that need their laptops fixed and like all of the things. It just shows you how, I don't know, I think to me it goes into the themes of like what rises to the top of like you can go through all these things but you're still standing. And I think that's one of the things that just really endears people to this story.
Yeah, well, and I think that this kind of goes back to why I think romance is really important as a genre and is so meaningful as a genre, because that's, again, like that's that's messaging. That's messaging that people need, right? Like life is hard enough. And this, I even though I like some of my serious books and I like my murder books and all that stuff, life is hard enough. And I think that we need to hear those things, right? That like, yep, you've been through it and you're like, you can make it, right? Or, you're making the right decision and it sucks right now, but it's going to be okay, right? Or that, doing the right thing pays off. Like, I would love to see more of that message in the world that like doing the right thing matters and it will pay off, even if it doesn't look like it right away, or even if it causes you some grief. You like her taking on Waylay, for example, that was the right thing to do, but it was a hard thing to do, and it is going to take her the whole book to like really get to the point of that is a reward. Like, you know what I mean? It's like a full reward, and it's I don't know from experience, but I assume parenting is it's not easy thing to do. But like she finds her groove with it though, right? And it ends up giving back at least as much as she gave in. And those are and everybody has been through stuff, and everyone has to work through the crap that came before this moment right now, and watching other people go through it in fiction, even in fiction, helps us to feel like, you know what, I'm going to be okay, or I can do this, or right. And it gives us that hope that I think sometimes we need to just counterbalance the fact that sometimes life blows and it's hard sometimes, and we've been through stuff. But it helps kind of buoy you back up to take a breath and to go face whatever it is that's, staring you down. And that's right. But it does that, what, like maintaining a levity, so you're laughing and you're enjoying yourself, and at the same time it's allowing you to kind of work through, or you know what I mean, kind of like make contact with even hard things and bringing the levity to even those hard things.
Yes, and by the end of this, you'll see that romance. These are serious books. This is serious literature. But
I love it. This is serious literature, Peter. Serious literature.
I still have to change it as serious literature. The thing that you're talking about is how romance is a bomb, right? It's a bomb. This is where you have things where people are searching for nostalgia. People are searching for it and will pick it up because this is guaranteed to end happy because my life sucks right now. Right. And that's the gift that we can give as romance writers. And sometimes it can be not taken as seriously, but show me somebody that lives a life without love. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'll wait. Right. And everybody has to go through that. And what we see in the stories is that you're wrapping it in all the other things. But at the end of the day, it's like everyone wants love and deserves love. And everybody wants to be in a place where they're accepted and seen. And then as we encounter this story, we are invited on the journey as they accept like where they are and begin the transformation process to be their best selves so they can accept the love that they've always wanted. And I think that's what makes it so that it's like that undercurrent that holds all of this thing together that we don't talk about a lot because we're busy doing it, and it's covered in all the other good yumminess. But
Wait, ABC, because we're doing it, is it because we're writing it, or because we're doing it as in we're swinging from the chandeliers? I genuinely can't tell.
doing it square.
Sorry, I probably threw you way off your train of thought, but I was like, I literally couldn't tell if that was a euphemism or not.
Oh, God. Oh, so, so, and so with that said, some of the things that we believe, and then I know Rachel has a list too, that we believe that writers can get from reading things we never got over, is, and I will say this, I actually wouldn't even separate between whether you're a romance writer or other. I believe that you can get a lot of what we're talking about right now and then some. And just a few of those things are talking about character development, um, pacing, um, talking about structure of a story. This is one of those stories where, yeah, you could say romance is formulaic if you want, because it is, but the way that this is done, you know how it starts and how it, well, you know how it ends, but man, that road in between, it will keep you focused and glued in. The fact that it's done in a low stakes environment, well, for the majority of it, it just makes it even better. um, I think also the way that you really integrate and ingrain both the internal and external journeys of characters is something that you see played out here, and it's done in such a way where you have to look for it and you have to go back and intentionally seek it out to see how it's being played out. But it really does just sort of just flow almost seamlessly. Um, I think another part about this is that it is almost like a genre mashup. If you were to extract some of the subplots that we see going on in here, it was a little bit of cozy mysteries, a little bit of women's fiction. It's a little bit of, both character and world, romance driven, humor, comedy. And so that she takes all of that and it sort of just melds down into something that's just wholly her. And even in that, as you continue to go through the series, even that evolves, right? Of how she does that. And I would say on my list, and I know you probably have a few more you want to add, I would say also too that I absolutely love this as a book one. You will hear me say it many times over the next few weeks. I love this book as a book one. And I have so many theories as to why I think it's a great book one. I think it's a great book, give or take the fact that it's so long. And I say that like we say it in jest, but it can be a hurdle for people because of the length. But I think it's something that, because of the way that it's structured and the way that it sets up the rest of the series, it's helpful for anybody to read that. Like, to really see how she set it up. And so it's a great book one. And it is an amazing demonstration of how to create and execute on an interconnected series.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss. So what about you? What are some of the things that you feel like is a benefit for most writers studying this novel?
Yeah, so I hit a couple of my big ones. We've already talked about, the just understanding how the arc of a romance works, as in a romance, whether romance forward or you're writing a romantic subplot. I sort of happened into the world building and touring the world with the plot by accident, as I was just like, thinking through it. I think this one is also such a great look at how you juggle multiple subplots and use them for your pacing, where you are weaving them into the primary story and using them to increase the conflict, to increase the tension, the subplots to kind of let them bump up against each other and create, where it's like, your protagonist is struggling to like know which thing to prioritize in the moment. It's like so much stuff is coming at her and it's forcing her to sort of make decisions about what am I going to do about this thing when all these other things are also going on. And so the timing, I mean, we'll talk about this in the plot episode where we look at, when you look at your 25% mark, your 50% mark, your 75% mark, you will see almost like dead on pacing of, things are, again, they're rising together, they're falling apart together, they're going sideways together, and it's all happening to so that the plot, even though there's loads of subplots and there's a lot of stuff going on, it never feels scatterbrained. That is a triumph to have that long of a book and that many things going on and it never feel like we're doing too much. It all fits together. And that is something that, again, anybody who's dealing with even just one subplot, right? You can learn from it. My fantasy writers who are writing, who are also writing a 600-page book with 600 pages worth of stuff happening in them, you also need to balance your subplots and make sure they don't feel tangential and make sure your story is not scatterbrained. This is going to help you do that. As well as, you're looking at, really forcing a character to, particularly your protagonist, confront the consequences of their flaws.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is, and we talk about this in the character episode, Naomi is in a lot of these situations because she is a people pleaser, because she hasn't learned her boundaries yet. And so it has some consequences. But Lucy Score never puts us in this position of feeling like we're blaming Naomi, or where it's like, blaming Naomi, but it's just that, all right, there are some consequences. We got to deal with those consequences, right? And then forcing her to confront those aspects of herself inside of the conflict to help her transform. And that's always what you're looking for in a story, right? You want that plot to confront those flaws, to confront those wounds, those problems, those struggles that your protagonist has, and kind of force them into that transformation process and continue to challenge them until they're able to grow into that person that right, the full kind of manifestation of the kind of person that they can be. And I'm not even sure I've hit everything on the list, but those are just some of the things that you're going to see in this book and that we're going to talk about over the next 3 weeks.
And one thing, we talk about this, but I think just stating it here, I think based upon the way that you just said that, it's really about how romance can show you on the page about what the cost is for transformation. Right. She does that really, really well in this story. Right. We see it on the page. And what happens is she's forced to be the person that she's always wanted to be because it's worth it to her. And she has people that makes her want to be that person. And in her efforts and in her struggle to become that woman, the people she's doing it for see it and they're better for it. And it's this reciprocal give and take, like, balance that we see in romance, I think, in general, and you should see when you build your cast of characters in any story, or else why are they there? But we're not talking about that today. But the point is, I think in this story, you see it because Naomi is so very aware that this part of her sucks. Like, it really needs help. And even when she can't help it, she's still doing it. And she's got to get out of that. And it's so endearing. Like, you feel bad for her, but you don't feel like, you feel like you want her to get it and you don't feel like, oh Lord, this chick, right? You don't feel like that because she really is trying. And I think that's something that Lucy Score does well in how she depicts both of her protagonists, where it can be something that you feel like you've seen before, but maybe you haven't quite felt the way that you feel about them because of how she sets it up. And it really is just a great, great thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to highlight that because that is something that we'll talk about, this is a great example of having a protagonist that has clear flaws, is making mistakes, but you never, just like you said, you never feel like you're never annoyed by her. Like, she doesn't ever feel whiny. She's just a lady who is trying her best. And that's honestly, like, it sounds so simple, but it is not that easy to pull off. I have read plenty of books, where you're working with a genuine protagonist with a genuine, flaw that they're trying to overcome, but God, they're so frustrating to be with. You almost don't want to spend the whole book with them because they can be annoying or they can be whiny. And this is a great example of like putting a protagonist directly into conflict with like the things that are going to hit those spots that need help and need it bad, but showing them working through trying to solve the problems as they come in the best way that they know how, so that we're willing to go along and stay along on the ride with them because we are genuinely watching Naomi try, and her solutions, maybe they're not always the best solutions. Maybe they're not, maybe she doesn't always know how to handle it, but you're watching her make an authentic effort to solve the problem in the best way she knows how in that moment. And we can hang with that. Because we can understand that as readers. I've been in many a situation where I am making my best approximation of a solution. Is it a good one? Nope, but it's the best thing I have, so we're going to go with it, and here we go. That's deeply relatable because everybody's been in that situation. But it's so funny because you say that and it sounds easy, but it's actually really easy to get wrong. And this is a great example of showing a protagonist go through that wrestle and try to solve problems the wrong way. And we're still willing to kind of forgive them their flaws and hang with them because we're watching them change and we're watching them make an honest effort.
And it really just goes back like to the foundation of it, right? Of just like having a character that's relatable, and you can begin to see, well, what is it that makes her relatable? Because she's gonna be handed some blows, and there are so many times I'm like, you know what? That might be the lady thing, dude. We better just duke this out. Look, we didn't knock them out. Let's just go ahead, put up your dukes, And she's juggling a lot. And it seems like every time you think she can't give her anything else, she does. Lucy's girl goes there, so maybe I don't want her to be my BFF because she's really
she doesn't pull her punches, just kind of scary.
Might be in all that pastel and all them pastel covers. She might be. But you see this, and I think as a writer who struggles with that, because I really love them and I don't want to see them, that's a hard thing. But at the same time, I think that's where readers feel the closest to these characters, because life doesn't hold punches back from us. Adulting is hard for you just like it's hard for me, and seeing somebody get through it and as best as they can do it with grace and as best as they can do it in a way that honors the humanity in other people, even when someone that should love you more than anyone else in the world doesn't. So we see that, and we see her having to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, and her sister kind of almost keep piling it on. But anyways, so yeah, if we haven't demonstrated like what you are going to see, like I don't know what else you would ask for, because this book has it all. It has it all. And if we miss something, charge it to our head and not our hearts, because
That's right. That's right. I love this takeaway. This is just really, I just want to like stick a little, like, we're not going to talk about this more throughout the podcast, but you just hit something that I think is important. It's like, one of the things that we see is like Naomi honors the humanity even in people who suck.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That is an art form. Okay.
It is. I mean, and to write it and to demonstrate it on a page where you don't feel like, oh, poor thing. Like, you don't feel, at least I haven't, and I've read the book a million times, right? I think it's a delicate balance, and it is so hard to do. And she does it in a way, I mean, just like with Naomi, like it's done in a graceful way, and it doesn't still hold back punches. But you want more than anything to see Naomi and Wele win. point blank, period. And the fact that Knox is like, I will knock some heads to make sure. This is why I love Knox. Come on. Back in the day, they used to say, "Nuck if you buck." Listen, Knox said, I did not come to play. And I love it. I love it. That's why we like characters like him. So yes, I did say "Nuck if you buck." He's about that life. That's all I got to say.
We love it. It's true. It's true. We love a guy who's like, oh, you want, all right, you're right. Who's going to step in and get involved in the best possible way. So I think that pretty much, I mean, I think we're at just about time. Any other things that people should be keeping in mind or keep an eye out for as they inevitably, after hearing this conversation, if they haven't already read the book, are going out to buy the book and are reading it immediately? Is there anything else that they should keep in mind or look out for?
I would say some like housekeeping. Housekeeping is that this is a long book, that we've said that several times. This is a great audiobook. So this is a great audiobook read. I would say if you listen to the audiobook and you find that this is something that you really can get into, pace yourself for your future reads. You don't want to aim to get everything all at the same time. Even in our conversation over the next few weeks, we don't even get everything. And I know I've read this book at least 7 or 8 times. Rachel has read the book several times. I've even done book clubs and everything with this book, and there's still more to it. But I think you don't have to get everything to get the main things. And you can even pull a slice and still be winning. And you're going to have a good time. You're going to laugh. You're going to be ready to fight. We're going to be like, who cousin is that over there showing out? Over there showing out. Back you up and knock them out. But, and I think the great thing is like you have a great time that you almost forget you are watching a master. Like you are watching her just do her thing. And so, pace yourself. You can listen to the audiobook while you're doing other stuff and still get it. And then as we go through these conversations, I would say really look at as you're interacting and engaging with the book of like, what are some of the things that you really want for your stories, that you want to do better when it comes to characters or subplots or world building or setting up series of making your characters relatable, but at the same time really putting them in situations that require them to either grow or go home. And you're going to get all of that and then some. But I would say, like, as you do it, like, go on here to read that book and come back and enjoy the rest of this discussion with us. And I think that's all, because we're going to have a really, really dynamic discussion.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for everyone to get to experience the discussion, and we just can't get enough of it. One more caveat I would add is this book is steamy, as in those sex scenes are on the page and they are like they're explicit. So that, and also there's quite a bit of language in the book. So if you're listening to the audiobook and you are concerned about small ears and or the guy sitting next to you at the red light and your windows are down, just be advised. Just that's for you. You can work it out. But I just thought the people might want to know there are F-bombs for days, and everything that happens, you will see all of it. So just so you know, if anybody wasn't ready for it.
Now, and we don't do the F-bombs, but they do. But I will say, okay, that's right. I know you're about to close it out, but one thing that just came to my mind, we talked about this whole thing and your face did not turn beet red once. I think I've got you. I think I've got you.
I might be a real romance reader. Although, as an aside, we don't really talk about the sex scenes in the next three episodes. So next steamy romance, we'll see how I do when it actually comes up. We will see. But maybe I'm just gonna take that as a win of like, yes, I'm growing. I'm officially a romance reader. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. It is. I'll say take it either way. Who cares? We'll just take it.
Speaking of character arcs, I just accomplished one of mine. So you guys saw it here first. So that is going to do it for this week's episode. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. I think you're going to have a great time. I know we sure did. And we love kind of letting you guys get a window into our minds and into our friendship. So don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, leave us a review. And if you're looking for us, you can find us at storydeepdive.com. We will be back next week to start our discussion about the plot of The Things We Never Got Over, and we hope to see you there. But until then, happy writing.